Okay, welcome everyone to the regular board meeting of the Amery Board of Education board meeting, and we are going to reconvene in open session. We were in closed session earlier, and the first item on the agenda tonight is the Spotlight on Education, which is the second grade kindness campaign.
You're up.
All right. Well, I'm Jen Melberg, Lynette Wentz,
Brittany Miller, Jenny Connick, Claire Halverson,
and we all teach second grade together. So last fall, I was at a conference of some sort, and I came across a website was about 10 random acts of kindness, and so I started watching it with some of my students last year. And so I kind of started doing some little things with them. Like one of them was like, one little girl was like writing lots of letters to just people that she knew. She might not have known them very well, but maybe as a neighbor, and just kind of just sending them a hello, thinking about you, be kind and pass it on. So then I kind of started doing that with some of my students last year. And then one of the things we watched was how they just decorated with chalk and just put lots of positive things out there. So on the last day of school, Mrs. Kasanik's class and I, we decorated the front of the elementary school with lots of positive things to send our students off into the summer. And so it's kind of started. And then the very last video that I saw was a first grade group of students that kind of started a kindness club. And so I emailed my team. It's like, this is awesome. We need to try to get this going here in our own school, in our own grade. And that's kind of how it all stemmed. And we've just kind of been running with it, and running it with our ideas, but also running with it with some of our student ideas too. So we'll show the video, and then if you guys have any questions, we'd love to answer them.
I need you, and you need me. Left alone, we will never be who we could be. So take my hand and don't forget that we can do anything together. Kindness is helping people I love, like the military troops. If it's a big deal or a small deal, you always need to help. Kindness is spreading joy. It's one drop of your love, a single ray of sun, just one thing to change the world. It's just you and me, starting with a dream and giving it all you've got. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop. Only takes one drop.
Lost your way, lost your cool.
My favorite part about the rocks was that my rock said, "Your heart is like a rainbow," and I think that's really kind. I really liked the part when we went and put all the rocks around Highway Fall Festival.
And you straight up lost your mind.
When I watched it. It's okay. Yeah.
Make it hard to see, but a little change in your point of view could be just what you need. There's always a reason to always choose joy. There's something deeper that the world can't destroy. Smile when you think you can't smile.
My favorite part about doing Socktober was finding out what my mom bought for the Socktober socks and knowing that somebody else would wear them. like what, 1,000 socks?
Happiness is wonderful, but it doesn't stick around. Walking on sunshine, then here come the clouds. You can laugh or you can cry when it all falls apart. But I believe the more you laugh, the more you heal. There's always a reason to always choose joy. There's something deeper that the world can't destroy. Smile when you think you can't smile. Get up and dance, smile. There's a bigger plan and you've got a reason to smile. When you think you can't smile, just clap your hands, smile. There's a bigger plan, you've got a reason to smile.
I loved about the military activities when we got to go around to fill boxes and all the stuff the kids brought in. My favorite thing about packing the military stuff is putting the toothpaste, the mouthwash, and the food in there to keep them to survive in the military. Even after second grade, I can still donate money to the Red Kettle. I can continue kindness by smiling at everybody that I see and give compliments.
And I think the video showcases a lot of the big things we're doing, but to recognize the little things is very evident. The kids are talking, they're using the vocabulary, and like Jen said it earlier today, is that they're practicing it. And when they practice it, they learn it, and they're making new habits. And we're truly seeing that in lots of different ways. And I know we wanted to give thanks to administration for supporting us and encouraging and allowing us to kind of keep growing with it, especially with those bigger activities that we're doing. So,
And there's one of our care packages right there that was just opened last week. So, yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
That was fabulous.
Okay, next on the agenda are the consent agenda items. Who had the vouchers this month?
I had the vouchers this month, so I will make a motion that we accept the vouchers as presented as I looked over them.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, board vouchers are approved. Is there anyone signed up for community comments?
See none.
Okay. We're going to bump up the informational items, the school perception staff climate survey, before the administrative department reports, because they're calling in from Milwaukee and they're scheduled to report. Do I?
Yep, no, it's just,
Sue, are you there? Is this Sue Peterson?
it is. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
All right, and can you see the screen okay?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, good evening. As you said, my goal for tonight is to go over the results from your recent staff survey. Just a little bit about us. If you have forgotten, we're not strangers to your district. We've certainly done some referendum work, and this is the third time that you have done the staff survey. And we work all over the country. We've been in business since 2002. Why should you be interested in the staff engagement data? As you know, if your staff are engaged, that does increase student engagement, and ultimately, more engaged students means achievement increases as well. We conducted your survey in November of this year. As in the past, all of your employees were sent an email invitation to take the survey that had a one-time use access code on it, so folks could take the survey once and only once. We do follow up over the survey window with non-responders. You had 174 responses to the survey, a participation rate of 53%. And I think that's pretty consistent with what we've seen in your districts, a little lower than in a typical district, but consistent with yours. So we ask folks a little bit about themselves when they're taking the survey. Why? Because we're going to slice and dice the data in a variety of ways, and some reports that your district leadership team will be able to use so they can go into a school and then go into a particular work group, or they could look at folks that have worked in the district a certain number of years. And so why is that important? Again, if we want to be able to provide support to folks that might be struggling in a particular area, sometimes we can kind of look at the demographics of that group and go, oh, this makes sense as to why either newbies or veteran teachers or people in a particular building or in a particular work group may be struggling. So we asked your employees, tell us what your 5 highest priorities are for planning for the district. Really, where should we focus our effort in the coming years? As you can see, providing additional intervention or support services for struggling students, better preparing students for life after high school, either college or career, innovative programs to support student learning, additional counseling and support services for students, and then training and development really for your staff to enhance their opportunities and skills. So you can see that's really a line in the sand there, as those are the top 5 that your employees identified. And then really you can see you've got another chunk here that's almost a perfect tie there. So expanding services for students with special needs, increasing hands-on project-based learning opportunities, safety and security improvements, and parent and community communication. So those are kind of next in line, but if we're going to focus on those top ones, that looks like where your employees are saying that attention should be focused. All right, I promise I won't read every question in the survey, but I do want you to understand how to read this report. So what this does is indeed we provide every question that was asked in the survey. Next, it's going to be the percentage of your employees across all work groups that strongly agreed or agreed with the statement. So in this report, big picture report, it's all of your employees and all of your buildings across all work groups. Then it's a simple average. So if everybody had said strongly agree, you'd see a 5. If they said strongly disagree, you'd see a 1. The number in parentheses are the number of employees that answered that particular question. But as you can see, some folks skip questions, so if they didn't answer it, obviously we can't count them, and we remove their N from the average. And next, this is new. We used to do a similar school analysis where we would, in a comparison, where we would compare your district's data to 10 school districts like you. We did a software upgrade over the summer, and we've been working with a research team. And now, because we do enough of these all around the country, and especially in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Illinois, we can provide a percentile ranking for your district of similar size. So what we do is we put in the size of your district that locks in with school districts around the country that are similar in size to you that have taken this survey in the last 2 years. So really it's an opportunity for us to provide you with better data than perhaps the way we were doing it before. It's data that doesn't wiggle, so I think that's why it's better. And if you had any outliers when we're only looking at 10 districts, that could perhaps be an issue. So as you can see here, 89% of your employees strongly agree that your district is committed to making improvements as they're identified. That puts you in the 92nd percentile. So when we look at these, when do we get concerned? When do we celebrate? 75 and above in that percentile ranking means that you're sitting in that fourth quartile. Those are the things we want to celebrate when we're looking at percentile rankings. Anything you see below a 25, that puts you in the first quartile. Those are things we want to pause and go, what's up, okay? That those are perhaps areas where we want to focus more attention. 72% of your employees said that there's a process for evaluating the effectiveness of new initiatives, but sitting in the 85th percentile. Look here, 85% of your employees say that they've been provided the resources to achieve district learning targets and curriculum objectives, sitting in the 92nd percentile. Also in the 92nd percentile with 97% of your employees saying that the school offers high-quality academic programs. That looks great. Down here, you've got two in the 37th percentile with 59% of your employees saying that the social and emotional needs of students are being met, and 71% saying that students have access to additional support when needed. Not surprising, but those were two things that kind of popped when we said, where should we focus our efforts, our planning efforts on that first slide. So those are areas we say, okay, might need some attention. I want to have some points of pride here. 90th percentile for folks saying that they're proud of their district. 95% are saying they'd recommend your district. Others seeking employment. 84% are saying it would take a lot to get me to leave this district. 99% of your employees say my work contributes to the success of our district. 91% say they enjoy being involved in activities outside of the school day. 94% say they find their job personally satisfying. 73% say the amount of work they are asked to do is reasonable. Looking at these here, 94% of your employees across all work groups say they've got a good understanding of the goals of the district, putting you in the 92nd percentile. These guys here all look good as far as communication and being kept informed about the things that are important to them and about the information from their school or department. 75% of your employees report that they feel comfortable sharing their ideas and opinions. All good there. These are simple averages. If everybody had said great, you'd see a 4. If they said poor, you would see a 1. So you can see here, 71% of your employees say that the school board has great or good communication, 81% from transportation, 72% from the technology group, 89% from district administration, 88% from payroll. These are nice looking numbers, much to be proud of there. Here you can see that the technology service is just a little bit low. Again, you've got 3/4 of your folks saying things are going well, but again, when we compare you to similar school districts, you're just about hitting that first quartile. We ask folks to say when you're getting information from us, how often are you utilizing various sources? If it was regularly, it'd be a 3. If it was never, it would be a 1. So it looks like your employees say, yep, the highest priority is reading that district newsletter. Then they're taking a look at the school's event calendar. The Amery Free Press is 3rd down there at the bottom. Not a lot of them are showing up at your board meetings, and perhaps not as many as you might be thinking are watching those board meetings on YouTube. How often do you visit the district's website? Here you can see 3% are saying 1 or 2 times a year, so really your employees are on it either daily or weekly, 28% monthly, with just a few saying, I don't need to go to the district's website. Why do you go to the district? They're looking for the calendar. They're looking at contact information for employees, viewing other sports and curricular activities, the lunch menu, those types of things. You follow the district on any form of social media. 64% of your employees are on Facebook following the district, 16% on Instagram, 14% Twitter, 6% are saying up. There's some other form of social media out there, maybe pages you're not even controlling that they're utilizing. Regarding district culture, 78% of your employees say that they've got an opportunity to participate in decisions that affect them, sitting in the 83rd percentile. 82% are reporting that their school or department operates as a team. Again, in that top quartile, 81% say that the school or department is effective at assimilating new employees. 90% of your employees are reporting that their coworkers are willing to help me when I have a heavy workload. Here's an example of why you really use the percentile data to contextualize your data. So there you're sitting in that first quartile, 22nd percentile, and you're saying to yourself, we've got 90% of our employees strongly agreeing or agreeing with that statement. How can we be sitting in the 22nd percentile? The reason for that is that this is a simple average. So what we can see here is that more of your employees likely chose the agree as opposed to the strongly agree. So had they given you a 5, this average would be higher, and so then you'd be higher up in that percentile ranking. So do we need to be concerned that we've got 10% of our employees that aren't feeling like their coworkers step in? Oh, we always want people to feel that way. But when we look here in that 22nd percentile, I would say let's not be alarmed at that because this here is sitting so high. We asked your employees, what do you think of the academic expectations of our students? 76% said just right, 13% too high, 11% too low. I say this looks like nice data. So anytime we can get above that 75% in the just right, I'm thrilled. And in your case, you're sitting at 76%, so good work. 89% of your employees are reporting that they received the training they need to do their job effectively. 92% say they've got the flexibility to do the job that's most effective, and 90% are reporting that they feel supported by leadership. 53% of your employees strongly agree or agree that student discipline is handled in a consistent manner by all staff. I can tell you that I have yet to give a report where this is in the top quartile. So pat yourselves on the back regarding student discipline. You are doing something right in Amery. In fact, just last week I sent one, and one of the schools had 0% of their employees felt that student discipline was handled in a consistent manner. So that made for a more awkward conversation. 60% of your employees report they've got enough time to do their job effectively, something folks in education do struggle with, but when we see where you're hanging out there, really in that third quartile as far as percentile ranking, so your employees are saying, yep, a lot is asked of me, but we're really able to handle it. 89% are satisfied with the technology that's available to them. 98% are saying they feel safe at work based on interactions with other adults, with 91% reporting that with students. So again, high rankings there, starting to be in those lower percentile rankings, but again, your employees are choosing agree, not strongly agree, and that is why nothing perhaps concerned about. 80% of your employees say that the pace of implementing new initiatives is appropriate, sitting in that 91st percentile. That looks good. 82% say they're able to manage their stress. 69% report they get enough sleep. 71% say they're able to sustain a healthy work-life balance. 51% report that your district's wellness committee is effective. 66% report that they're exercising 3 or more times a week, and 77% claim they're eating healthy. So again, those are good. Looking here, development and recognition, again, all very high percentile rankings. Those look great. 83% are reporting that their PD days are well planned. 84% say they've got adequate opportunities to participate in professional development. And 84% say that meaningful and timely feedback that helps improve their performance 74% say they receive credit and recognition when they do a good job. Compensation and benefits, 78% say that their pay practices are administered consistently for all employees. 63% are satisfied with their pay. 80% say their benefits are competitive with similar jobs they might find elsewhere, sitting in the 68th percentile for both. 80% are saying they're satisfied with their benefits. 51% are saying their pay is fair in relationship to their job responsibilities. High rankings for your building leadership. 93% report that they trust the building leadership. One question that calls out the building principal. 91% of your employees across all your buildings say that your principal is an effective leader. 87% say that building leadership is consistent when administering policies concerning employees. High marks for your district administrative team. Look here at your percentile rankings. Much to be proud of there. 97% are saying that admin is responsive to major concerns of employees. 100% of your employees strongly agree that the district administrator presents a positive image to the community. 98% report that the district administrative team is doing what it takes to make the district successful, with 95% saying that they trust the district's leadership. We don't want you as a board to feel left out. 93% of your employees strongly agree that you as a board are doing what it takes to make the district successful. 89% say that you're appropriately balancing the mission of the district with fiscal responsibility. 88% say that you're presenting a positive image to the community, sitting right there at that perfect 50th percentile, right in the middle. Again, real nice data there. 99th percentile that the district's made improvements in the past year. 95% of your employees strongly agreeing with that statement. 98% saying, all things considered, this is a good place to work. 96% saying our community supports education. It's a school, so we ask you to give us a grade. 36% of your employees said, I'd give you an A, 51% a B, 11% a C, 2% a D. Nobody failed you. That's awesome. And then we said, well, compared to neighbors, what do you think? 23% said much better, 41% better, 25% the same. This is rockin' data we like to see. The fact that you've only got 3% of your employees saying, other districts around us are doing better, with 8% saying, no opinion, I'm probably not familiar enough with other districts to answer that question. If you recall, we will take the survey questions and they feed a variety of indexes that we believe, and our research teams believe, are centered around staff engagement, especially for those in education. So they fall under 3 categories: people, place, and process. And so when we look at those theme areas, so this allows you thematically to look at the district. And so again, there's 4 questions within the survey that feed each of these indexes. And as you can see here, much to be proud of when we're saying, where does your district rank compared to other districts? And then what is that percentile ranking? Nothing falling in that first quartile where we'd say, this is an area where we would need to focus some attention. So again, where are things going well? High percentiles for your trust in building leadership. Are you equipped? So I've got the tools and training. Healthy communication. Your employees are saying we are taking care of ourselves. So great data there. Definitely some nice gains for the district. So considering gains, you might have to put on your bifocals for this, sorry, but what I did was I pulled this out of another report that we produced for your district leadership team. And what I did was here we're going to look at longitudinal data. So this is this year's simple average. Again, if everybody said agree or strongly agree, you'd have a 5. If it was strongly disagree, a 1. So this was your average for all of your employees across all work groups for this year. Then the next column was last year, and then this is your 15-16 year here. and then the percentage for this year. So what I did was I was able to do a sort, and I just snagged this so you could say, where have we really had the most growth? What does that look like? So in these cases, in that report, we turn things green when you've had a statistical significance of growth from last year to this year. So really, where has there been huge growth? And if we look back here at 15-16, you can see your average was a 2.69. You've jumped all the way up to a 3.77. When responding to the question, our district has a culture of open dialogue. Now you've got 84% of your employees strongly agreeing with that statement. Where else have you had big gains? Process for evaluating the effective new initiatives. School board policies and procedures affecting me are available and clearly communicated. District clearly communicates with me about important issues, so we saw some big gains in those communication questions. They feel comfortable sharing ideas and opinions. Pace of implementing new initiatives is appropriate, and pay practices are administered consistently for all employees. So again, this was across all work groups, but if you were going to say what's changed in the last couple of years, so really 15-16 was the first time we did this, this allows you to say, these are the areas where we've really had the most growth. So it was able to pull that data. And then when I was talking with Sean, I said, well, let's take a look at the feedback regarding district leadership and board as far as folks, their perception of that. So you'll see here in 17-18, that question set was removed. That was a request of the district. So now we're just looking at where were you hanging out in 15-16 compared to where you are now. And again, you're going to see some pretty significant gains, almost more than 1 point here as far as trusting the district's leadership. Huge gain as far as district administration consistent when administering policies concerning employees. Similarly, with your superintendent presenting a positive image to the community, responsive to major concerns of employees, district administration is doing what it takes to make our district successful. So each of those high percentages there, which we saw in the PowerPoint, but when we start to look at where you were hanging out just a few years ago, you've really made some nice gains. Similarly, with you as a board, those questions, nice gains since 15-16. So you can see where you were hanging out then versus where you are now. Greatest gains sitting here, and the school board is doing what it takes to make our district successful, so over 0.6 there. So again, nice gains with your district leadership, as well as really some areas of communication and looking at initiatives and meeting the needs of your staff. And so with that, I will take a breath and ask if there are any questions.
Did we have any areas that went down, in any of those longitudinal, looking over how things have changed?
I was peeking around at that. Let me just
It's
pulling
great
it
to
up
hear the
on
good
my other
news
side
and
here.
see all the things that went up, but I am just curious.
Yep, so you had it. Hold on, I'm just looking over here so I can give you some guidance. If I put this on my screen, you'd probably all get a headache and an instant migraine. So. Really, district-wise, if I look at all employees across all work groups, you had nothing that statistically went down. So again, we turn things, I'll pull this report over so you can see it, but this is what Sean has so you can look at it. This looks just at all, so we start to pull things apart by your work groups, but if I just was going to look at your district as a whole, so I kind of I'll hide these guys for you. So here what happens is we turn things red and green when there's been changes. So red means they've statistically gone down. Green means they've gone up. So that's how I did that sort prior to our call. And so as you can see, nothing turned red. So there was nothing that dropped down from where you were. You've really just made some nice gains. I think there were some areas where employees were struggling. But as you can see here, nothing red, so really nice gains there.
Are there any other questions? All right, well, thank you for that information.
Thank you,
Just
Sue.
Disconnect.
Thank
Sure.
you, Sue.
All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
be in
Thank
touch
you.
come referendum time. Take care.
Yep. Good night.
There you go.
Okay, backing up now to the administrative department reports. We'll start out with administrative reports.
Okay. At the high school, just a reminder that you can check out our sports schedules at any time on many areas, the school website, the school app. Just to keep update on that. We're usually rolling 3 to 4 nights a week, including tonight. So, this past month, we've just got done conducting a clothing drive. Our student council and our environmental club had a clothing drive for a battered women's shelter in the Twin Cities. Had some decent success with that. On November 19th, we had our National Honor Society membership ceremony. November 26th, we conducted our practice ACT test for juniors, and we had some really good data that we took in from that that'll help us prepare for the ACT in March. December 8th, we had our high school choir holiday concert and jazz band as well. December 9th, we had our high school academic and career planning presentation night, the iGen speaker that I spoke to you guys about. And we learned about the differences between the boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials, the iGen. It was determined that the Generation Xers were the best. But no, we had a number of community members join us that day, and it was a valuable time for all of us to kind of things that we take for granted about different generations of kids and things that we see as being belligerent sometimes really isn't belligerence. It's how they act, and so it was good for us. Future events, we'll talk to you a little bit here later on about early graduation requests, and then this Friday we're going to have some fun at the high school in the afternoon. We've got a stage hypnotist, a comedy show coming in Friday afternoon, so we'll have a little fun before we send the kids off on break.
All right. At the middle school, we just got done with a food drive that ended last Friday, and we're really pleased. We had a really nice response, especially 7th grade. Way to go. They did a nice job. We also just recently had our holiday concert last Thursday after school, or in the evening, and then we performed again for our students, and we're really glad to have the intermediate come over, and we do a concert in the afternoon for students as well. They repeat it. A lot of things coming up in the next month here in January as we come forward. We have Tim Scott coming in. This will be Tim Scott's, I think, 22nd or 24th year in a row that he's spoken to our students. I would like to invite the board to that if you're interested. It's a presentation on the Holocaust, but he speaks on the Holocaust, but then really has an interesting message on and being inclusive with other people, and he drives it home to the kids in a way that's really hard to explain if you haven't seen it. Unfortunately, it takes about 4 hours to participate or more in the presentation. Project-based learning will be really kicking off heavy as soon as we get back from break with not only our CREATE class starting second semester for 8th grade students, and then our Genius Hour program will be kicking off for all students at the middle school. And then, of course, one of the big programs between the middle school and the intermediate school is Prairie Fire Theater, which will start early January as well.
Okay, just a couple of things. We also just finished our food drive. We finished our 25th year of our food drive. Kay Erickson came and spoke to the kids a week ago on Friday and really explained to them the process of the food shelf and what it entails and how many people use it and what a valuable source it is for our community. So they really do understand where it all goes. When we get back from break, we'll start heavy into getting ready for the forward exam. It's not until March and April, but we need to get prepared and ready, so we'll be hitting that when we get back.
Okay, the elementary school is full of life and spirit this last week and actually all of December. So if you want to come over and have some fun, you can join. You can probably walk into any classroom and be singing carols or making parent gifts or decorating little gingerbread houses. It's just full of life and excitement. On that note, at the beginning of the month, on December 5th, we had our annual Holiday Family Fun celebration. That's the celebration with Santa and cookie decorating and caroling and storytelling and crafts. I want to shout out a special thank you to Courtney Derfler, who is a Parents as Partner, and she pretty much single-handedly planned that event with support of my fabulous secretary, Katie Elmer. So we had over 300 kids and families in attendance, and it was very, very fun. To go along with the other buildings, we are also collecting, and it's part of our kindness, our second grade kindness campaign, although we've been doing it for years also. We have a red kettle from the Salvation Army, and to date we have about $270 that the kids have contributed, and we have also donated to the Amery area food shelf. So it's been a fun and exciting December. On a more educational, well, it's all educational, but I attended the reading specialist meeting at CISA last week with my with our reading specialist, Carrie Shue, and our Title I teacher, Jana Kostanek, and it was a share shop on different reading interventions that are used at the primary school, and we were introduced to or part of communicating about approximately 15 different reading interventions. As you know, that is very important at the primary school to teach reading, and it was just a really great morning of learning.
Well, in the world of special education, a couple things coming up. We've got an IEP workshop on December 18th here this week, and that's really a time for case managers to collaborate, get feedback. If they have questions on evaluation reports or IEP writing, it's a time that they can do that, and they do receive some professional development as well, PDH credit for that. We also have planned in the January in-service on the 20th a social skills training in collaboration with UW Stout instructors, Dr. Christine Peterson and Dr. Jess Muzinski, a school psychologist. They're both certified in social skills training called peers. For proprietary reasons, they can't actually give us peers training, but they can facilitate a training just basically on role playing and feedback, on helping instructors better tackle different problems that middle and high school students present with autism spectrum disorder, ADHD, anxiety, and other social problems. Also, just wanted to highlight, and I don't often enough, the pupil services team meets monthly, and that's mostly comprised of counselors, the school psychologists, and nurse. And just want to highlight a couple of things that they do. We shared some youth risk behavior survey data during a meeting and really dug into that data and looked what does this mean for some of the activities that we can do throughout the district to better engage students and respond to the needs that they're showing on these surveys. Also, some important work that our student success counselors and counselors are doing is mapping the social emotional learning standards and aligning that with the curriculum that's going on in our buildings already. And both of these projects I expect that you'll hear more from in the future. I think February is a student engagement presentation, so I well expect that you'll see some of that, but I just like to highlight it's really great work that this group does, and I just don't highlight it enough. With that closes the special ed portion. I believe I'm next on the agenda for the non-discrimination
I was just going to say,
report.
you're next for the pupil non-discrimination and educational equity report.
Okay, this makes for a pretty short one. We are required annually to submit to DPI an educational equity report which identifies names of the employees designated to receive complaints and then the number of complaints we received throughout the year. These are related to alleged or perceived complaints regarding class. So sex discrimination, I've got the categories here. Disability, class, race, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, ancestry, creed, or pregnancy, marital, or parental status. So those complaints would be directly related to, I have been treated differently, an allegation that I've been treated differently based on one of these status. Pretty short report here because we don't have any to report. So that's what will be submitted to DPI. Let me know if you have any questions.
I don't have any questions about that, but I noticed in your written report that you submitted that you said the IEP workshops are optional.
Correct.
Do you have how do you have as far? I mean, how do you do as far as attendance for those? Because you said it's kind of a time for them to network and to discuss these. So I'm just kind of wondering how that works.
I think at last we had about 14 out of 18 of our staff, so they're attended. I would say 80 to 90% of staff are attending. So.
And is that during school or is that after school hours?
It's after school hours.
Can I jump in on one? I forgot, and I think it would be unfortunate not to mention, to thank this community, all the businesses, organizations, individuals, staff members who contributed to the Secret Santa program during the holidays. I was fortunate to help serve on that group that distributes, and we served 87 to 88 families over for just to supply them with Christmas gifts for kids and things like that. And it's a really great program, seeing all these people being so happy and excited. And I also want to shout out to Linda Kuchenmeister, who's our fearless leader, their husband Jim, her daughter Kelsey, her husband Howie, Pat Donahue, and Lisa Benson as well. It was really fun, and of course all the staff members and community members that made that happen. Sorry.
Oh, don't be
Thank
sorry.
you.
That's a great thing.
Moving on to now the informational items. The second item, we already did the first, is the district achievement presentation by the administrative team.
Okay, up on the screen, you'll see the district administration district achievement report. We're going to start with high school, and Josh, you're up.
All right, so Becky and I have rehearsed this, so we're going to be completely on sync. So, of course, we're looking at multiple data points that we go through in terms of what we're looking for. Becky, go ahead and move ahead to the high school one. All right, so the priority areas, we're looking for student achievement, growth, closing gap scores, and then we're looking for post-secondary readiness and how they're going to do when they leave high school. So at the high school, we've got our report card from 2018-2019. The score is 68.3. Puts us comfortably in the meets expectations. There's always room for growth, and we'll continue to grow and try to get higher up on that scorecard. ACT, an area that we've definitely shined at. You'll see in red we have Amery scores as compared to the state of Wisconsin last year, exceeding all areas across the board. So really great work there on the ACT. You'll notice over the last 5 years in our 39 school CISA, we placed in the top 10, fourth overall in our 5-year average on the ACT with 21.10. Within the Middle Border Conference just last year, third place just narrowly with 21.1. Osceola just ahead of us at 21.2, but once again, very comfortably within the rankings. AP tests. This just shows the number of AP tests that we've actually taken over the years. If you go back and look at 2006, 2007, we only had 21 test takers. And when you look at the evolution, especially the last 4 years, 96, 72, 90, 81, we've definitely had a lot more kids taking advantage of the offerings. We've seen a little bit of an increase in the number of classes that we're providing that have been gone through the certification process with AP, so we're happy with where our numbers are trending there as well. Test percentage passing, 2018, 2019, 72.7% of our students who took AP tests, or out of the tests that they took, earned college credit. So that's a really nice number. AP pass rates over time, this is in comparison to the Middle Border Conference. We've been at about a 70.1% pass rate. which is at or near the top of the conference. So very successful on our AP tests. Our four-year graduation rates. This is probably the area that's kind of impacted our overall score on our scorecard. However, you will see
that very topic.
Yeah.
What's
It
right
seems
for
like
some
there
kids is
should-
to stay.
It seems like that there should be an exception for, I mean, that should be part of their scorecard. Is
I
that
s-
ridiculous?
My thoughts have been lodged multiple times, and I know that Tom will say the
I sit
same.
on the district assessment coordinators team from all over the CISA. It's a point of contention for a lot of schools.
Yeah, sure.
We continue to say that you're scoring down schools based on graduation rate, even if we decide that the student needs to stay for another year or two, and they're not graduating with the four-year cohort. And they're like, yeah, we realize that, but that's the way it is. And then when you call up even to the DPI discussions we've had, they're like, yeah, we totally understand that, but that's the way it is. And so I think what we do is just continue to communicate that if that's a concern and that's one of the things driving our scores, we will make sure that people are aware of that.
And
Because-
Wisconsin isn't alone. Every state does it that way. Four-year
Yeah.
cohort.
Yeah.
Can't do much about it.
It's more important to do what's best for our kids.
Correct.
I think our community sees what that speaks for itself when our kids come out versus what we see once a year on a piece of paper and
Right.
It's just not how we do business here, and it
And-
shouldn't be how we do business here.
And we even have situations where students leave us and go to a virtual program, don't do anything, and then come back behind. We have to take them because they live in the district, and now they're behind credits for graduation. And again, there's something that you have no control over. And that happens more than you'd think. It's probably a good newspaper article. Just saying.
Wow.
If we only knew a reporter.
Exactly. Middle school, you're up.
Okay. This was our school report card at 77.8, and again, you can see those categories of achievement, and then you can see where our achievement score is and where the state achievement score was. So our achievement score was at 74. Our school growth was at 82 versus 66. That was one of our areas we're really proud of, meaning that not only were our students achieving higher than other students in the state, but when we got them at the middle school, they grew faster than other students in the state did. So we were really pleased with that. And then you can see the other areas, and I'm going to come back to that, closing the gap score. But those four scores together come out to give us the score of 77.8, which puts us at exceeding expectations. These are the scores for our forward exam, and you can see we have some places for some pretty big victories, and we have some other areas that we have some concerns to talk about. So you can see between 6th grade at 1.3 percentage points above the state versus 8th grade at 23.3 points above the state. And so I'm going to come back to that as well. The next one is our math scores, and you can see they kind of mirror the language scores for the most part. But again, about 12 percentage points is a school above the state average. And then you can see science and social studies and where they fell, and again, 19 and 12 percentage points above the state. So that's kind of how we did on the forward test. This is an example of how some of the growth is measured. Basically, this is every single student when they were in 3rd grade. Amery is the blue, and the state is the purple. And we watch and look for growth over time. And this is a class that will graduate in 2022. I use that class because they were a class that the elementary slotted quickly as a group really in need of academic intervention. And a lot of work happened from pre-K all the way now into high school, and it continues to work to make sure that those kids are growing. It's really cool to see that they've surpassed their peers. Celebrations, our score again exceeds expectations. We've exceeded or significantly exceeded expectations on the report card all 7 years that it's been done. Our score put us in the top 15% of the middle schools, so we're pleased with that. And then that high value-added growth, meaning again that our kids are growing at a faster rate than other students, which is something to be proud of. Other celebrations, that achievement being, for the most part, 10 to 23 percentage points above the state. And another achievement was that 7th and 8th saw tremendous growth over the last couple of years. Also want to make sure that we touch base on creative programming. So, not only are we concentrating on the numbers, but we want to make sure that we're still doing creative programs for our kids. Working with our SEL program, which we highlighted over the last couple board meetings, and the different things that we're doing to keep our kids reconnected. Making sure that band and music are open to all kids. Very strong message in our building that no matter what you're going to do, we're going to allow you to take all the applied arts classes without having to choose yet, and that you can still take band and you can still be in choir and still choose everything, because our real purpose is that we want to expose you at the middle school to everything and let you find what you really like, what you're really strong in, or what you want to work on, and that they don't have to choose yet. Life is about choices, but as they get older in the high school, they can make those choices to where they want to go, and we want to make sure that we give them all the options at the middle school. So I've been really pleased with all those electives and exploratory classes that our kids take, and I really want to thank the board for letting us continue that. Our areas for improvement on the school report card, the first one, and it's been our problem for the last couple of years, is closing the gap between regular ed students and our special ed students. And then on the forward test, my 6th grade ELA, primarily ELA, has performed lower than expected for the 3rd year in a row. And so there's some things that we're trying to do to fix that. Action steps. We've been working on data retreats if you ask my staff, they're really tired of all the data that we continue to look at. But we're sitting down and taking a look at our data and trying to decide what are areas that we're strong in, what areas can we improve upon. And we use those to set goals and to drive resources, to drive our mission. And an example of what we did is like we broke down the test and said, okay, these are the standards that kids were missing. These are the standards they did well on. What were they missing consistently over a 3-year average? And if that's the case, then we really need to make sure that we are pinpointing what needs to be an essential standard at the grade level and really need more emphasis. And we have to change our instruction. When we start seeing trends like that, that's when we step back and say, okay, this is on us now. What are we going to do differently? So we set an improvement goal. The first one is that by the end of 2023, we'll close the gap in ELA and math by 50%. And then that's our main improvement goal. And if you continue on, these are some action steps. And there's 2 pages of them, so I won't go into them. But I'll tell you some of the things that we did do. I really want to thank I have a lot of really strong teachers. Jess Smith is here tonight. She's one of them on that committee. And we really took a look at research-based methods. Rather than always continually trying to say, well, we need to change this or do this or do this, we also take a look at goal setting. We said, okay, sometimes the students feel disconnected between these assessments and their own life. So we help setting up individual students working on setting goals, working on more of a growth mindset culture, where we take a look at how it's going to impact them. We implemented PBIS check-in and check-out, meaning that if students are struggling, we go through making sure that they're greeted and welcomed in the morning, that the teachers are making sure they have what they need, they're checking in, and at the end of the day, we're checking out with them to make sure that they have everything they need when they go home, that their needs are being met, and things are being communicated. The other big thing is inclusion and differentiation. And one of the things we found is for our special ed goal, if you were not in the regular ed classroom, for the most part, not one of those kids was proficient on the exam. It makes kind of sense because they're being pulled out and they're being pulled out for a reason. But we really felt that what we needed to do was significantly decrease the number of kids in pull-out classes and significantly increase support for those students in the regular ed environment, meaning that they still go in to the regular ed class, but they have people going in with them to help support them and to learn as much as they possibly can. I think that's it, but any questions?
Oh, I have so many.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question is, you were talking about the 6th graders that are scoring lower than what you had anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
But then we look at that in the 7th and 8th grade, and
Yep.
then they start closing that up and they start actually exceeding. So things in that nature of the 6th grade, do you attribute to necessarily just not being prepared, or do you attribute it to the transition of one school versus coming into another school, before you start looking at like trying to change everything and then seeing that they're closing that gap into 7th and 8th grade or getting better and exceeding those expectations?
I think it's a little bit of both. We haven't necessarily seen that same dip in math as much as we have in the other area, and I don't want to create an issue with staff, but I have really, really strong teachers in those departments, and they work really hard and do a great job. I do think that it's a big transition coming from one core teacher to having all of the classes and all of the teachers, and so we've made some suggestions staffing wise on how we want to fix that problem as well. But I also think that we need to step back and take a look at sometimes we might be concentrating on in an area that the DPI is saying this is a priority in 6th grade. And then maybe those were things that some of those standards maybe weren't being hit until 7th grade. I do think that kids get into the middle school and start to figure it out and have a lot more success as they get on. And so, yeah, we do see a lot of growth. But I think that there's a lot of different things that we have to take in consideration. But the other thing is, too, like we talked about the teachers and
Parts of brain development there
Right.
too. I mean, so
Yep.
those are that language and a little bit slower than
And Or can help me out on this, but if you take a look at the English language arts standards, there are so many of them. Whether it's which types of speech, speaking, listening, writing, reading, and we have found as you go through that the test is specifically measuring certain ones at different times of the, and we needed to drill back down and say, oh, we really need to change some of the emphasis of what we're doing, or at least teach it earlier before they're being asked to and being assessed on that from the state. And again, though, the other thing too is that that's one test on one day, and we can really show that our kids are doing extremely well and continue to do extremely well. If they weren't learning and exceeding, they wouldn't then be 23 percentage points above the state 2 years later. But there's all kinds of things that we have to look at and take into consideration.
And so then talking about assessing that data that you're getting and looking at really drilling down and seeing what kind of benchmarks you're hitting and what kind of standards you're addressing, do you feel that leads you to teach more to a test and bail out on what you thought was important at one time? Or are we thinking that what we're teaching is different now, that's more important in a different way? I hate teaching to a test if something was important before.
Well, I guess I'll take the stance back that we are really firmly believing in the PLC method in this district. And that really is tied down to saying, as a staff, determining what standards you think are essential that kids absolutely must know, and then making sure that you're assessing those kids and intervening if they're not learning that, and making sure that the students don't leave without having that knowledge to a satisfactory level. I'm not necessarily saying teach to the test, but definitely want to step back and say that we need to make sure that we know what standards are vital and that we're teaching them to the best we can, and to help kids learn the best they can. And sometimes, though, we need to also take a look back and think, well, some of those standards that we thought maybe were vital, maybe the state is saying this is more vital. Teacher had my favorite little pet project that I did that really wasn't tied to something that was essential, and we had to let go of that. We're constantly looking at things that we maybe need to do differently and change and let go of this and to add this or increase in this. You can't necessarily just teach the test, because the test doesn't always have the same standards every time either. But we're looking at major trends over time. And these data retreats that we go to, some of them are led up by CISA, and we have large groups. Just last week I had them with individual teachers in discipline areas working on it during the day. So I hope that, I don't know if I answered that really, but don't want to definitely teach to the test, but we want to teach to the standards that are vital. Because the state test is set to measure the standards, and we're to teach to the standards. So if we're teaching to the standards, technically you are teaching what the test is going to be measuring.
And then I have one last question.
Okay.
So we're talking about how our special ed students, score lower on certain things because they're out of. And now you're back in and having more inclusion time in a regular ed classroom with help.
Yeah.
And how long has that been going on?
Well, we always have specific students that are being pulled out, especially students that are maybe intellectually disabled. But for the most part, our students are in the classroom majority of the time. But we have specific students that are reading or performing at such big gaps lower than their peers that we still have some pull out. But for the most part, I think it was probably been the last 3 years. Jess can answer that. 2 years. The last 2 years. Yeah, the last 2 years we really drilled down and said we are going to be supporting math and English classes where these kids are being exposed more to the core curriculum. They still need value-added time. Their IEP oftentimes will still say they still must have value-added time. So most of these kids are in a regular math class, a regular reading and language arts class, but then still getting supported, especially in areas of reading as on the outside in addition to. But just like anything, the time comes from somewhere. Yeah.
And so we haven't been doing this long enough to have data to see if this is working or not working or how it's affecting those kids? Or
No, I can tell you that we're hoping for continued growth. We're going to definitely want to measure it not just on how much percentage of kids met, because that those scores basically tell you how many scored above that bar or not. Doesn't, even if that student was so significantly below the bar 2 years ago, and they maybe grew years of growth, but still didn't quite make it. But that growth is really important. So when we measure not only what percentage made it over that proficiency bar, but then how much growth did they get. And I kind of showed you that is, we have some of the highest growth for middle school kids in the state of Wisconsin. So the growth that we're getting. So I firmly believe that that's going to continue and we're going to see growth with those students. But we don't have enough data right now to really say if that's made a difference or not. Because last year was year one, and so we have 1 year of state test data. But I think, too, we also do have a lot of individual data, classroom data, and this is just one indicator. So we take a look at growth charts in all different areas. So,
and we'll see if that conversely affects regular ed learning students in that classroom as well.
Right. However, I don't think that you'll find that. I think that you're going to see that will continue.
Quickly, at least stop me if you have any questions. Our overall score of 79.8 is exceeding expectations, which we have fallen in that category every year. So very proud of that. One of the scores that we are definitely proud of is our Closing the Gap scores. That shows our kids, our special ed kids, and our regular ed kids score very well. We have an 81.7 versus the state of 73.9. So these are our individual scores. If you can remember back maybe 4 or 5 years ago, very concerned about some of our scores. Our reading, language, art scores are excellent. We're almost 14 points above the state average in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Math was one area in 3rd grade that we were really zoning in on. And you can see that we made a nice growth again this year. So overall, almost 10%. Above the state average in math. Science and social studies were just rocking. I love to see that in science. Hopefully that's, we do a lot of hands-on project-based science here at the intermediate school, and I think that really pays off. So our celebrations, as I said, we have exceeded expectations and are closing the gap score. Forward exam, our 3rd graders rose from below the state average to almost 10 points above. Our language art scores continue to grow, and science is just rocking at 20 points above the state average. Creative programming, our AIM program is just exceptional. They've done a wonderful job. Title I, we have excellent Title I teachers really working with regular ed and special ed kids and helping them in a skill-by-skill basis. We do the check-in, check-out, as Tom talked about, and RTI interventions are based on those essential standards. And remember, RTI is response to intervention. So we look at kids that are actually missing essential standards and then teaching them right at that level. This was our goal that we set 2 years ago. By May of 2019, 10% of the students would move from below basic or proficient to an increase of the next proficiency level on the forward exam in reading and math, or they could score at 70% of the students above that proficiency level. What are our action steps? We want to identify those students that are right below that little bubble and making sure that we have an extra effort to get them into that next rating level. provide RTI interventions to boost the performance on the 2020 exam, looking at those essential standards that Tom was talking about in the areas of reading and math, and then continued development and implementation of common formative assessments. And those are all based on the essential standards. Fully implement our check-in and check-out system and supports. We've begun our Tier 1 implementation of Second Step, which is our social emotional curriculum. Continue to match those RTI supports and implement our Stop and Think resource room, which I want to tell you has just been amazing. Terry Cran is the aide in that room. I've chatted with her several times, but today spent some time in there. It's for regular ed and special ed kids. We've never really had an opportunity where both regular ed, special ed could use the same type of resources, and it's going exceptionally well. That's it for me. Any questions?
How's your check-in, check-out process going?
Good, very good. We're in our second year, and so we've got a few more kids on it. We started out slowly last year, both regular ed and special ed kids doing it, but really finding out that kids like that check-in in the morning, that responsible person to check in and out at the end of the day.
Go ahead.
I was just saying about how many kids do you have doing that this year?
Well, they like you to have 10% of your population. I don't think we're there yet. I would say we're probably around 15 kids that are using it on a daily basis.
And that's across the whole school?
Yeah. Increase that as we can have more supports and capacity.
Yeah, and it takes a lot, right? I mean,
well, it does. We just want to make sure that we could handle what we had, because you need to be very responsive to the individual needs. But we have cooks, custodians, aides, everyone in the building. Becky serves as one of our check-in, check-out persons, and I think they find it also very rewarding to be a part of it.
Cool. Yeah. Takes the whole village. You guys are awesome at that.
Okay, last but not least, the elementary school, which looks a lot different than everybody else. As you all know, we do not assess with the forward exam, so we have our own assessment, but there is state law that says what we need to do. And if you focus on the third bullet, we have to evaluate kids on their phonemic awareness, which is really sound awareness and letter sound knowledge. So the tool that we have decided to use is Ames Web Plus, is our screener. And you're going to see a lot of charts like this, so I'm going to explain this first one, and then we'll just kind of go quickly through the rest of them. So this is early literacy. We're reporting out to you the fall and the percent of kids below the 25th percentile and the kids at or above the 25th percentile. And then in the spring, same thing, the percent below the 25th percentile and the percent above the 25th percentile, and then our increase, the percent of increase. So of course, when it goes from 76.1% at or above the 25th percentile to 82.1% at or above the 25th percentile, it's an increase of 6%. But our goal is to get 80% of our students above the 25th percentile. Okay? So that's what they're all going to look like. This is specifically Fountas and Pinnell, which is a different assessment. This is more of a diagnostic reading assessment, which gives a reading level for children, and it also helps teachers identify the specific areas that kids need reading support and intervention. So kindergarten looks very well. First grade, this is Ames Web. You can see that we had an increase of 12.8%. our Fountas and Pinnell was a decrease. This was a surprise to us of 5%. We went from 75% at or above, but 70% at or above at the end of the year. First grade, as you know, is always that area that we are looking at to study more, and we're doing more research with other districts as to what they are doing. What we are finding is that the and so we don't panic at this, but we do, like I said, I shared earlier that we did attend CISA last week to hear about different interventions, because we're always looking at different ways that we can help provide support to our readers. This is second grade. Second grade always seems to bring it all together. So you can see that we on the Ames with a plus increase of 18.5%, 82.9% of our children above the 25th percentile. And on Fountas and Pinnell, we had an increase of 20% from 58% to 78%. So it seems to come together in second grade, but it really comes together in third grade. Our math scores are beautiful. You can see that increase of 11.7% in kindergarten, but 93.3% of our kids were at or above the 25th percentile. First grade, 88.1% were above the 25th percentile, an increase of 8.3%. And second grade, 85.8% were at or above the 25th percentile, with an increase of 14.2%. Credit our math program. We are very happy with math expressions and the training that our teachers have received. So some of the celebrations, our academic celebrations, reading Ames Web, grades K1 and 2 increased the percent of students scoring above the 25th percentile, and kindergarten and second grade exceeded the goal of 80% above the 25th percentile. Reading Fountas and Pinnell increased the percent of students scoring above the 25th percentile in kindergarten and second grade. Math increased the percent of students scoring above the 25th percentile and well exceeded our goal of 80% or more scoring above the 25th percentile in K1 and 2. Some of our celebrations, as all of our, I believe, administrators talked about, data retreats are really important. We look at data and we breathe data and we look at data and we use it to help instruct our kids and to make curriculum decisions. So we participated in a building-wide data retreat in our building this year instead of attending CISA or in 2018. And we used these core ideas, data and assessment, core instruction, family and community engagement, beliefs and expectations, and professional collaboration. And as a staff, we identified the celebrations and the areas of improvement, and that's how we developed our goals for the 1920 school year. We also, one of the celebrations, which was very positive, is our students were trained, our staff was trained in the Next Step Forward in Guided Reading, which is a huge intervention program. Actually, it's a core program for all of our kids. So teachers were trained in that, and then our parents as partners provided a lot of money to support the resources that went along with this training. Other celebrations, support and expansion of the innovative programming, specifically our lower elementary Montessori third grade. Continued implementation of PBIS Tier 1 and Tier 2, including data-based decision-making. Again, we're looking at the data and we're making decisions on behaviors based on that data. Check-in, check-out in our SAY groups. To help with our behavior, our 4K teachers and paraeducators, this was a phenomenal opportunity. We're all trained in pyramid model training. It is an evidence-based practice for promoting young children's healthy social and emotional development. So our 4K program very much focuses on social and emotional development, excuse me, of our children. Next steps, we're continuing to support the professional learning communities at work. I know you guys hear a lot about that, but truly, as stated before, it is the way we do business, and it's very important. So some of the things that we are looking at is our common planning time and using that time to specifically look at our students and who's making progress, who's not making progress. This year, we are fortunate enough to assign our Title I personnel to work with our professional learning communities, which again is very helpful in identifying interventions for our children that are not making progress. And then we're creating opportunities for staff to develop, refine, and review our pacing guides, our essential standards, our common formative assessments, and looking at rubrics that's to help evaluate our students and as we work in our professional learning communities. So huge work being done in that area. Next steps, we continue to modify our block schedule to make sure that it's working with our teachers and is meeting the needs of our students. We're continuing to discuss and refine our WIN groups, which is what I need now. It's an intervention time. Our first and second graders each have an hour block of intervention time where we break our kids up and work with them on the individual needs that they need. And continue to research methods of intervention for students needing the social emotional learning support. Last spring, a team of us went and observed the Stop and Think room, and that's what really brought it to Amery. And as Ms. Schock said, it's really a beautiful intervention for our children. A good place, a positive place for kids to go, cool down, get back into the classroom. Any questions?
Yeah, Cheryl, you talk about the your PLC groups, and that they have time to kind of get together and talk about students who might need more intervention and things like that. So, can you just kind of take us through like how a PLC group would work then after they come up with that? Is that something that they need to come to you? Do you meet with them periodically? Could you just explain how those look in your building?
Mm-hmm. So twice a week, our teachers have either team meeting time, an hour, so they meet in their teams for an hour for team meeting time. Team meeting time is more the business of a school district, like, what could I give for an example? How do you feel about the block schedule? What do you need to help provide support to your kids? That's team meeting time. Our PLC time is an hour every week where our teachers have designated time. The team meeting plan time, I actually give an agenda every week. The PLC time is developed by the teachers, and it is a time where they focus on, and they're all in different places at different times. They create agendas, they submit notes. I go to them intermittently throughout the months because I can't get to everyone. It's an entire day that we have PLCs. But the agendas are based on data. So a lot, again, we're teaching teachers to look at data, and they're doing a fabulous job of it. So whatever data they may be, after our benchmark testing, they're looking at benchmark testing data. Intermittently throughout between benchmark testing periods, they're looking at their formative data, so data that they collect on a weekly or monthly basis. They're also looking at their progress monitoring data, so students that are falling below the 25th percentile are being evaluated weekly on the intervention that is being used for them. And so that's what takes place during a PLC. They also develop their essential standards, they develop formative assessments. They could be in a PLC an hour a day, honestly, to do the work. But we're doing a good job of it, and we're moving forward but it's an ongoing process. Does that help? Kind of explain it a little bit?
Yeah, I guess I was wondering like how that works, and if they have to clear things with you, and if there are things that they identify, and what goes on there. It's a lot. I mean, when you're asking teachers to also teach and then also identify, and we all have them in every building, right? So,
Yeah.
and then also go through all the data, and it's a lot of time.
Yeah, a common experience would be we're going to try to finish the unit at approximately the same time in common pacing, give an assessment that we've developed together commonly. Then you take a look at the data and say, okay, boy, the students in this room really did well. What methods did you use that maybe I can learn something from you, or we could share ideas? But ultimately, then it's drilling down and saying, boy, we have these students that really did well. They don't need to hear this again. But we have this group of students that really struggled and really would need a reteach. And then maybe I will take certain groups of students one day, and you can take certain students that needed it, maybe not the ones that you normally have in your classroom, and then breaking that out and then intervening as best you can. And enriching kids that don't need that, too, so that they don't have to sit and listen to it again if it's not necessary.
It seems like a lot of work, but it's almost a gift to teachers to be able to work and collaborate together and talk about not just their classroom, but the whole grade level. And so it really provides support to them as far as, how to work with their kids and what interventions that they can use. And you're right, it's a lot of work. Teachers work hard. And our teachers are amazing.
I know.
But they really embrace this concept, and they love this concept because they feel some kind of control. And if, do I approve everything? Yes. If they really want to change something big, our second grade team had an idea of something they wanted to try, and so we talk about it. I brought in our reading specialist so that we could all powwow, and is this the best move to make? But we do give them permission to make decisions because they are on the front line and they know what they're doing.
And there's time during the day that they get to do this? Or
Yes,
this is-
an hour once a week is built in for PLC time. And then we have been really cognizant of, during our teacher in-service time, not filling that entire day up,
Right.
that we're giving them team time so that they can work in team meetings, because it's defining essential standards, it's reviewing those essential standards, it's looking at their groups, it's creating formative assessments. It's a ton of work, and they really need it, and we've been fortunate enough to be able to give that to them.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So from a district perspective, if you take all 4 buildings' scorecards, this is what generates the district scorecard. 73.1 exceeds expectations. 6 of the 8 years, the state of Wisconsin has had a scorecard in all 6 of those 8 years. The other 2 years, there just wasn't a district report card for anybody. We've exceeded expectations, so every single time we have. The big overarching trend that would exist is a shared goal between general and special ed, and that's the closing gaps goal. You've heard that consistently here: English, language arts, and math. Special ed versus regular ed, that's going to be a goal of ours until we've remedied that problem, and it's been on the docket for a while. I certainly don't want to steal your thunder there, Brad. If you want to chime in, if you want to take the rest of this, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Well, certainly our goals continue to be to close gaps in ELA. You've heard about that all night between students with disabilities and those without. Increase access to general ed through inclusive practices. You've heard about the stop and think room. Continued support of supported teaching, and we're hoping to get to more co-teaching. We've seen an additional section of a co-taught English class at the high school level that has been really successful. Staff have reported that it's been effective in terms of boosting student learning, and we'll see that through data from our Read 180 program as well, which is a component of that class at the high school level. We also have a special education pull-out Read 180 course at the middle school. So again, focusing on accommodations, exploring new staffing models. Happy to report that that's something that, with the stop and think, And with that co-teaching and supported teaching, that we're continuing to have that dialogue and conversation, and especially with the changes to come at the middle school, that will continue to be a conversation on how interventions are best provided at that level. So I expect more conversation to come on that. Any further questions?
So the targeted area of improvement, again, is closing those gaps, and that's something we're trying to do K-12. And we appreciate your patience through 63 slides of information. We knew it would take a while to wade through, but it's really important stuff, so thank you for your patience.
So then this is something that,
The district achievement document, Becky will cue that up, you have that in front of you. So we have taken all of what you've seen in 63 slides and pared it down into a 4-page, or in essence, a handout that would be 4 pages. This is something we could use for marketing purposes. We're in the process of figuring out exactly how we want to use it. Tracy Hendrickson helped us put this together. This is the high points of what we do from a standpoint of school report card, ACT, graduation, forward exam, our programmatic options, and newly added to this, because this is a document that's second year in the making, is beyond the classroom walls, beyond test scores. We do all sorts of things that are not classroom activities. And that blue section at the top on that page, you will see is just that. And it's part of our academies and so forth. So there's lots here. So that's the finished product of, in essence, last school year. Any questions at all?
Closing the gap's been pretty much the area of improvement for the past.
It's been on the docket since we've had a
the report
scorecard.
cards. Okay.
And closing the gap is something that most districts are struggling with, especially as kids get older. Like the gap between addition is much lower than the gap on calculus on that test, because they're taking the exact same test as everyone else, and so it's always continuing to be a problem. But it's really driving. High school is really hard too, and the state actually has stepped back now and said that it's a big concern. They're seeing some flaws in the way they're also calculating it, and it's being reevaluated. You're probably going to see improvements in this achievement gap score just because they're taking a look at how they're calculating that and adjusting for next year based on what they're seeing.
The part that's fairly unsettling about the scorecard is we've had district report cards for 6 of the 8 years. Next year will be the 7th, and next year will be the 7th different calculation to get your number. So it's pretty hard to compare from year to year. Everyone's sort of trying to stay afoot on a moving playing field. And it's a concern, I get it, we all get it, but the scorecard's not really how we got it. We knew that long before the scorecard existed. So we're doing our best to try and address it.
Okay, the next informational item is the school board election.
Okay, up on the screen, you'll see a slide that articulates where we're at with school board election. We have one at-large position up, Aaron's position here in April. So if somebody is interested in running for the school board, they need to do so, declare their candidacy for the position by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 7th. That's the state statute. That's not some arbitrary date that we've created, and they would come to the district office to do that. And that's all there is for that information.
Okay, the next informational item is We Are Amery Network by Mr.
Okay,
Gould.
Josh is going to walk us through this. Josh's background in athletics and now his present experience as high school principal puts him in a position to share with you what we know. We are definitely in the year 2019 with the ability to watch ball games.
Okay, so Becky will be bringing up some information here that's showing you we actually have a live feed going on with our girls basketball game versus Baldwin right now. And basically how this started, we've had conversations probably informally, Tracy Hendrickson and myself from a communication standpoint. And of course, when it comes time to show you guys this, we're having some technical difficulties. But Becky, you keep working on that, and I'll tell you what's been going on.
This is one of the worst rooms in the district connectivity-wise.
So, we've had such an amazing partnership with Northwest Communications and Amery Cable broadcasting our games for years and years and years, but we haven't been able to do live, like what's going on right now. And of course, with the internet and everybody in our neighborhood is doing live streaming now, so we're kind of joining that revolution here. So Tracy connected with a gentleman out of Grantsburg named Bob Rombach, who is looks like we're doing pretty well tonight.
We're winning.
All right. Must have been Ella Schmidt there with the basket.
It was actually.
All right, so
There you go, Mom.
It was a 3-point. Yeah, I think it was.
So it's been, we've done 5 games so far. The We Are Network was started up in Grantsburg, and they basically have a lock on all of the upper northern half of Polk County, and it's been trickling down into our area. Osceola joined the network, going east, Cameron's part of the network, and I would have a venture to guess that other school districts are going to follow. One of the neat things about this is we're able to keep our good relationship with Northwest Communications. We're able to supply them the video off of this in a storage space where they're able to access it and play them over Amery Cable just like they have in the past. So we're keeping that going, which I think is really important. They've always been great supporters of our school district. We broadcasted a wrestling match the other day. We've got John Ashland on the call tonight. John's been working for Wixie for a number of years and is helping out with this. Tomorrow night we've got boys basketball at home. We've got Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on the call, or Josh Gould and Brian Melberg on the call tomorrow night.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing. And we're in the process here. We'll have a hockey game coming up soon. We have to work out a couple of technical difficulties there. And eventually we envision a time where we'll be able to also do potentially our concerts, elementary, intermediate, middle school, high school concerts as well. The technical aspects of this, it cost us nothing. We were basically given the devices, and as you can see, No Insurance has been one of our big sponsors so far. There's ad is streaming at the bottom of the page. For those community members, businesses that want to become part of this, please reach out to us so that we can get you to be part of our network. The school district has also bought a sponsorship, so you'll see those scrolling by. Normally we would have way more interaction, but with Shar at the meeting today, she hasn't had a chance to interact with us. And you can see 31-13, the Warriors are having a great night here versus Baldwin in a middle border battle. So we're really excited about this. It's been able to, we've had emails, comments, people, it looks like we've got some Granica family watching it from Ojibwa. Of course, they can't make it to all the games, but now they can go on and watch. And we've got grandparents in Arizona, Florida, aunts and uncles. And so we're really excited about this. The other really neat thing is when any of the sister networks are hosting, for instance, Osceola, we don't have to go to Osceola and record. We will just tap into their feed. So we could potentially have a hockey game on our feed, a boys basketball game at Osceola, and if our girls were fortunate enough to be in a We Are Network team at the same time, we could even have 3 of our events live streaming at the same time with people having the option to watch all of these. So it is the year 2019, and we are moving forward with what everybody else is doing, and hopefully we'll get better than everybody else, because that's what we like to do at Amery. So, any questions about the We Are Network?
Can you spy into practice like New England in the video?
No.
If we recorded it.
We're going to follow the rules.
Yeah, and so we're training in some people. We've got a kid that's working the camera tonight. We're trying to get some students to maybe step up and get involved. Brian and I will have a fun time tomorrow night doing the game. We're not experts, but we'll find a way to make it fun. And maybe Dale some night when he's not reffing would like to join us and be our wingman and add some color commentary. Really, I just wanted to get you to talk. That's only why I said that.
I'm watching the game, yeah.
Any questions?
No, I'm super excited about this. I watched the wrestling match the first night that you guys started with this, and Mr. Gould was on with Reggie Schleicher. Shout out to Reg for coming out of the from the across the team
1,200
sideline
views
here.
on the first day.
Yeah, it was fabulous. I was doing chores, and so I'm feeding calves, and I'm trying to like hold my phone and watch the red. I'm screaming, and it was really cool, and it was awesome to see you, to hear you out there doing that. And this is going to be so valuable for all the people that like I don't have cable. I live out in the middle of Nowheresville, and all those people that are far away. And this is just a great addition. I've been watching Grantsburg stuff when the Schnells are up there, and this is going to be a great addition for our school.
So we've had 144 different people watching this tonight, which that's a good number.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm tuning in tomorrow night to hear you.
All right.
Can't wait.
Okay, the next item is the first reading of board policies, various
Okay.
board policies.
Our next rendition of board policies are technology policies. This is most of them. We had some really out-of-date language. We've tried to combine some of this. We've eliminated some policies. This was reserved for nearly last because this took a lot more time to do. The red is where you'll see the changes which have been made. We've got references to blogs and wikis. That's just not what's happening anymore. We changed some protocol there in regards to the use of district social media, and tried to loop our director of IT and our director of communications, Clint and Tracy, in there so they know what's being posted on our social media. That's what you'll see in bullet point number 2. The bullet point number 3, that's all remained the same. Those are the must not do's. So all of those things we don't allow folks to have on their social media. Bullet point number 4, rather than list out what Wisconsin Open Records Law is, we just simply noted it's subject to Wisconsin Open Records Law. There's a lot of information you could put there, so we just noted it as a Wisconsin Open Records Law. If you want to know more, you simply refer to that records law. Continuing on, we added a clause that no employee shall hold themselves out as representing the district or the school board through social media. It's under our auspices, and we want to make sure that folks know that, so the district brand remains the district's. The following guidelines are meant to be cohesive and uniform presentation of the school district of Amery Facebook. This is all from policy exhibit 821.2. So what we did is we simply put 821.2 exhibit 2 and made it a part of this policy and got rid of 821.2. It was separate in isolation, no reason for it to be. All of the points A, B, C, and D all fall underneath number 8. That's all from 821.2. And then there's cross-references to a variety of other policies that we have already in place. And I noted it as next month because you'll have to see it again next month. So that's the first one. I'm not sure if you want to take these one at a time or you want to wait till the end.
Well, this is just an information.
It
So
is.
next time we'll do the second reading.
Alrighty. 821.2 is about creating a wiki page. If you really want to know how to do that, you can go to YouTube, I can imagine, and figure that out. But this is no longer what we do. So we just basically got rid of it. 821.2 Exhibit 2, again, we just moved that into the other policy, so we got rid of this one as well. The use of district technology, we got rid of the reference to chat rooms. Our kids aren't in chat rooms anymore. That's just not what's happening. And updated the date to January of 2020. So those are all of the technology policies, and you can, right there, the relations with community and governmental organizations is sort of the beginning of the next type of policy, which is law enforcement investigations on school grounds. This policy, 882, simply replaces what you see there in red that's been stricken. I'm not really even sure what 882 does in regards to the policy. It's so very broad, it doesn't, and it was 1995, so it's been a while. This is a policy straight from WASB, Wisconsin Association of School Boards. This is their, not directive, but their recommendation as to what you should adopt word for word. And I simply copied it word for word and dropped it in as a policy update 882. We have police that are doing investigations on school grounds all the time, and typically it's a matter of them asking kids questions while at school. in the manner in which they should do that, making that as unobtrusive to the learning environment as possible and protecting the due process rights of kids. And that's what this spells out. And if there are any questions on either of these sets of policies, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
So this entire policy 882 was taken out of the
WASB.
WASB.
Word for word, all of it.
And we didn't have this policy beforehand?
Nope. Did not exist. Nothing like it existed. And there's been
And I
questions.
take it if this is adopted, then this will be forwarded to the police department?
They've already seen it.
Okay.
A matter of about 3 weeks ago, I sent
Okay.
it to them.
There is just a typo on
Okay.
the bottom of the second page where it's just missing a Y. The student shall be summoned. It says B, school personnel. Just need a Y.
I'm looking for it.
B,
Oh,
right there.
there we go. All right. I'm going to blame WASB.
Great, go for it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, then we're on to action items. The first action item, early graduation requests by Mr. Gould.
Okay, we have 3 seniors who applied for early graduation. They've met our requirements. I've met with their parents. I've met with their guidance counselors. I'm satisfied that they've done what they need to do and that they have valid reasons for wanting to graduate early, and I would recommend that you approve that.
I'd move that we approve early graduation request.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, the graduation requests are approved. The next action item is the curriculum recommendations from the Oversight Committee by Ms. Shaw.
Right. So every year, we entertain the idea that there could be new classes either at the high school or the middle school. And they go through the whole process of creating the new class, going to their department to get approval. Then they go to their principal to get approval, and then finally to the Curriculum Oversight Committee. And these teachers have done all of those steps. And so there's 2 of them that are here tonight from the high school English Language Arts department that would like to talk about 3 new classes that they are proposing for next year. And I'd like to thank them for sitting so patiently and waiting their turn.
Hi, I'm Lisa Relo, and Lisa Relo at the high school. I'm Lorna Coleman, teacher at the high school.
I'm Greta McCarty. I'm the media specialist at the high school.
And so just trying to be brief, we did a survey of our students to assess what their interests were as far as elective courses and currently offered courses. In response to what students were most interested in, we continued planning 3 additional courses designed as electives. And so if you look, I'm not sure where it is in the order of these things, but it's the last page of the media literacy. These are the results of the survey, so it would be page 4 of this document. One more page. All students were sent an email invited to respond to the survey. 257 students responded, and we asked them for their input. What are you interested in for term English classes? So in order of student preference, for very interested, creative writing, which is a new course we are proposing, was top on the list. Independent reading, mythology are both current offerings. Media literacy is another new course that we are proposing. And then world literature, number 6, was also a class that students were interested in. So we continued planning and preparing to bring forth those classes to the Oversight Committee. I don't know if you want to talk about creative writing. I'll talk about
Sure.
media literacy.
So, as Mrs. Relo suggested, we decided to brainstorm some new classes to hopefully meet the interests of our students. One of those courses that we brainstormed as a team and showed as having really good interest at the high school is creative writing. I think the name speaks for itself. We're interested in trying to allow students an opportunity to explore a different element of writing that they may not have an opportunity to work on in the regular English classroom. As it says there, they'll be given the opportunity to explore creative writing, various forms, everything from writing maybe stories, poetry, fiction, nonfiction, dramatic scripts, and so on. It meets, I put together the list of standards that it would meet, and it's about 8 pages worth of standards. Obviously, writing being the most important, but really in a creative writing course, students would be reading their writing to other students, so there's some reading elements. Other students would be listening. So again, there's listening. They might have to do some research if they're doing fiction and maybe incorporate some research elements into that fiction. So it really, across the board, addresses all of the state standards and beyond. And as you can see from the survey, the students show a great interest in exploring creative writing.
The media literacy class is also a 9-week class, and it is designed, students are looking to social media for a lot of their information, and they're bombarded with information all the time. So this course really seeks to try to give students tools through which to reliably interpret the information that is coming at them, giving them the tools to be able to evaluate that information. And then also another very important part of this course is to conscientiously think through the everlasting and forever kind of social media presence that they create for themselves. Because when you're in middle school, in high school, you maybe are not thinking of 10 years down the road when you're applying for a professional job, but the things that you post are still there. So, so these are two things that that the course seeks to equip students with. And Mrs. McCarty and I have both collaborated on developing this class. It meets multiple, and they're listed before you, I won't read, but multiple English standards as well as media literacy standards. And we've collaborated to identify curriculum that we would be using. I piloted one of the lessons using this curriculum in my 2 English 10 classes to get some student feedback, and that is an additional page. You don't have that in your paper copies. I do have some paper copies here for you if you would like paper, but 91% of the students self-reported in an exit ticket in answer to the questions, what do you think? I used the Checkology curriculum and presented a lesson. And that lesson was on evaluating the reliability of information. And 91% of the students self-reported that they liked this Checkology session. And I included some of their student responses in their own words. I liked that this lesson was hands-on and had steps, so the lesson was broken up. I thought this was a good method of group effort and team building. I didn't really dislike anything about it. It was a very fun activity. I thought that this was good and informative activity. I now can depict better whether evidence is supported. I liked the mixture of videos and the practice. I liked how we got to look at actual pictures too. This curriculum takes very current information and also involves, it's a very interactive program, and I led this with video, introducing some things. We did small group discussion, large class discussion. It was a very active class. And I loved the, where is it? Yeah. I thought it was sick. And I had to just double check with the student. I thought that was a positive comment, but I just needed, and I did double check, and that means they really liked it. So
she's a baby boomer.
Mrs. McCarty, Mrs. McCarty also taught with this curriculum for 2 years in Osceola, and so please come and add some.
Yeah, this is a really great curriculum that brings in a lot of evidence that students can look over and discuss and debate and talk about and dive into, which is really hard without a curriculum put together to find those resources yourself and have students evaluate. So it's a fantastic curriculum that has teacher-led, independent student work, a lot of group activity discussions that work all together. Some of the topics that are involved with the curriculum that students will be going through with Mrs. Relo and myself when I get a chance to collaborate is filtering news and information, the First Amendment and freedom of the press, identifying quality journalism, identifying misinformation, algorithms and personalized information, identifying brand and content, and then some other supplemental curriculum that we've kind of curated for this class comes from Common Sense Media, and some of those lessons would revolve around topics of media balance and well-being, privacy risks with new technology, curated lives, digital footprint and identity, challenging confirmation bias, health effects of screen time, and filter bubbles, and how they limit information we're exposed to. So a lot of really great topics that are going to help our students understand the information that's surrounding themselves all the time.
With a very high, this lesson had just an incredibly high engagement of students. They were, the block went by very quickly, and they were surprised when we were close to the end. It was, and then the other class, the World Literature class. I'm just going to read what Ms. Beavis had prepared here. So, kids are more connected to the world than ever. This class will help them explore cultures through literature and gain understanding of those who are different than they are. This will also be beneficial for students who want to study abroad or travel after high school. And so this course, in the course they'll read various translated novels from other parts of the world, and an important goal of the class is to promote an understanding of culture and literature through the literature of that culture. Some of the works that are proposed are Things Fall Apart, Persepolis, Chinese Cinderella. One of the things that is proposed for this class is an exploration of the culture, not only through the literature, but to enhance that through perhaps some engagement of some food and cultural traditions that, of course, would involve food along with the literature. So, anything else? So just overall, like I said, we